What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video over here on the Ultimate Dino Ninja channel. How's it going? Well, I ain't gonna stall. There's no reason to. So I'm going to do shoutouts and then let's jump right into this. Thank you, Infernal Natsu, Just Chillin', Nameless, The Lich King, Zero Day Glitch, Solar Panda, Jack Masters, Onshore Bowl Gaming, Dragon Godspeed, I'm a Sloth, Zen Zara, Koichi Oma, Saruto. Thank you all for joining up the Discord. And I do want to state I am sorry for Friday, I know I was gone. I had a horrible migraine, but that is my bad. And let's jump into the what if right now. Where he last left off, picking right up. Izuku charged at the monster that seemed to have a crystal inside its body, thinking that this crystal would probably contain Artemis inside of it. After charging at the monster, Bell, as well as Eyes, followed him closely behind. Izuku sent a left hook straight at the monster, sending him flying, way more than any one of the gods had fought that were present. They had heard of Izuku's strength, but really didn't assume him to be as strong as people say he was. But obviously, the rumors must be true. Izuku seemed to be dangerously strong. Hermes knew this very well, watching the boy with a kind of curious eye. Izuku then quickly jumped back as Asuna rushed in. Not Asuna. My bad. Totally different thing. I was talking about something totally different before doing this. What if? My bad. As Eyes rushed in and stabbed the monster, cutting off one of its legs before quickly dashing to the side. Of course, after that, Bell came in with his own dagger and cut the monster down the center, and then jumped back. Izuku knew he needed to bind the creature first before doing anything else, so he looked around the cavern. It was rather empty, so he decided that there wasn't any rocks that he could just jump or chuck onto the monster to mobilize it for the time being. So instead, he looked for something very similar. He couldn't find anything though, nothing at all. Shit, Izuku thought, as he then remembered that he had Black Whip. He then, using Black Whip, sprouted two of them out of his forearms, connecting with two of the monster's legs, before then quickly running around the monster, eventually tangling the monster up as he continued to extend Black Whip. Of course, this brought issues to Izuku's own personal body, but he was able to tangle up the monster rather quickly. After the monster was tangled, Izuku smiled, knowing that he had basically, not caught, more of hold the monster down for now. As he then saw what appeared to be Bell preparing to launch what was the arrow, as Izuku saw, was at the monster. Izuku, realizing that this must have obviously been what was meant to kill the monster under normal circumstances, Izuku then quickly stopped Bell. Bell was rather confused with this and asked Izuku why, which then Izuku responded saying, "I can get her out, but you can't shoot that arrow yet." Bell was confused even more, but Izuku sighed, as he then quickly ran over to the monster itself. The monster was wailing at this point, trying to break free, and Izuku knew if he didn't do this quickly that the monster would break free. He then touched the monster directly in the center and started saying the chant. The chant was rather simple, but it was unwind time. Take it back to the place where my friends can roam free, where free souls can run and escape. Free the person that was entrapped inside by unwinding them to his state prior. rewind by the power of Eri. Just like that, Izuku felt his mana being drained at a massive rate, quicker than he could have even guessed. He slightly fell to his knees, and Bell saw this, and so did Eyes, and both of them were kind of afraid for him. But then they started to see the monsters start to reverberate and slowly deform. This confused even Hermes. Hermes thought there was only one way to do it, but what he was seeing in front of him was a totally different way. Something that just didn't make sense to him in the slightest. Of course, Izuku was constantly having his mana drained as he got weaker and weaker as the time went on. But eventually, Izuku saw Artemis split off from the creature's body. He then yelled at Bell to fire the arrow now, which Bell obliged. The arrow struck the creature, causing it to die. But Artemis was still intact and in one piece. Izuku, sighing heavily, being out of breath, collapsed to the floor and fell unconscious. Aiz had a smile on her face after seeing this. She knew Izuku was one of the strongest people that she even knew, that she even could think of. But just for the fact that he had found a way to save someone that no one else had any other ideas on how to save was something that she took pride in. She knew Izuku was an excellent person. She wondered if she could ever be an excellent person like Izuku, if she could strive to save everyone rather than holding in anger of the past. But then Aiz reminded herself of the one-eyed black dragon and her past that she had still yet to actually go on and completely tell Izuku, and decided that it was for another day that she could share that with Izuku. Maybe when he woke up, she would tell him of his past, but not for now. Of course, Izuku eventually awoke, it being about around 2 days afterwards. They were already on the back of wyverns. Izuku heard that they had buried all the other members of the Artemis Familia, which Izuku felt kind of ashamed of, because he knew if he didn't fully let out, he would have been able to, at least in a form akin to resurrecting them by rewinding their bodies in time. But then Izuku then asked, where did they bury them at? And Artemis then stated, in the same exact temple that was used to house that beast. Why? Izuku lightly chuckled as he said, do you want them to come back? Which confused Artemis, of course, before she remembered Izuku stating that he had a way to resurrect her Familia members, and that it wasn't all over for them yet, and that they could be actually resurrected. Artemis almost felt like an idiot for this. But after understanding that Izuku was speaking the honest-to-God truth, she said yes. Of course, Izuku went in there and did the dirty work of resurrecting them himself, feeling that it wasn't right for him to make either one of the two major participating members even help him. He felt pretty bad for Artemis in general, and hoped Bell would treat her better. Of course, afterwards, Izuku eventually just helped with everything else to finish off. After resurrecting the members, most of the members were quite confused, because they had all known that, well, they had died. Of course, being back alive after dying would send confusion to most people. So, them being confused, Izuku then explained that he had rewind their time states on their bodies to before they had died. Of course, Izuku almost ran out of mana again and almost fell unconscious. This time, luckily though, it wasn't as big of a rewind as it is to rewind Artemis out. It was mostly just about around 10 to 20 seconds for each Familia member, respectively, because Izuku had dealt with, well, the creature rather quickly, so there wasn't much of an issue in that perspective. Izuku sighed after this event had finished. he thought about just like how at base crazy everything was, and said when he got back home, he'll definitely relax a bit and maybe even train Bell to become stronger. Then Izuku thought about it and he was like, yeah, training Bell to be stronger would be a good decision. But then again, he also thought about multiple different things. Eventually, Izuku sat down before talking with Aiz. Aiz decided to finally tell him about her past and explain what happened to her in the past that caused her to become so void of emotion. Izuku listened attentively during all of this, wanting to hear every single thing that Aiz had to say. He heard about the one-eyed black dragon and what it had done, and he decided definitely to look into this creature, if not to bring it to justice, then to just flat out destroy it. Which Aiz was confused on what he meant by bring it to justice. And Izuku stated, well, you see, Aiz, bringing it to justice is better than killing. Killing it in itself will only cause more hurt and harm to you than anything else. That's what getting revenge always does. So the pure action of not getting revenge and actually working to try to better yourself and become better than the thing you sought to destroy is always the right answer. Aiz felt conflicted about this at first, but eventually decided to trust Izuku on his decisions. Aiz knew all fair and well that Izuku was a hero, in almost every single literal sense of the word. So, her telling him on what a hero should do was kind of off. Izuku also decided to give a little bit more information about his past. Not too much, but definitely decided to tell Aiz a little bit about that he was from a different world and the world that he was from. Of course, Aiz was very interested about this other world, but Izuku eventually cut her off before she got any ideas, saying that right now, currently, the world I'm from is a world in its own, but I've already set it aside for now. I want to stay here with you and everyone else and have a pleasant time together. This caused Aiz to beam a very bright and beautiful smile, something she didn't do too often, but Izuku loved it all the same when she did. Izuku beamed back with just as beautiful and bright of a smile. Eventually, they had flown back, Izuku and Aiz feeling way more closer than they were before, feeling like they had a better understanding of each other and how each other acts, and how they would react to other person's opinions and decisions. Of course, it was a start, but Aiz wasn't completely happy with Izuku, or happy with the idea of forgiving the one-eyed black dragon, but she knew it was a possibility itself, and even though the thought kind of felt like she had been wronged on the conversations, she still decided to respect Izuku's statements, understanding all fair and well that what he said could be, well, correct. So she decided to trust Izuku with next to every living part of her being, and hope that he could eventually find the dragon, so the dragon and her could make up and maybe try to become friends. Aiz at that point was kind of like confused. She didn't know if what she was saying was actually logical or not, but decided to roll with it for now. Eventually, they ended up back in the town of Orario. Of course, Loki was delighted to see both Aiz and Izuku back in farewell, and was kind of shocked when she saw Artemis show back up. Of course, Hermes explained how Izuku here was, well, rather impressive in his skill and magic usage, which kind of caused Loki to laugh because she already knew that Izuku was pretty impressive in most case scenarios and could easily topple most people under normal situations just fine without any issue. So after some time of Izuku were chilling out with Aiz and Loki, of course Loki wanted to hear all the details, so he informed her, and then Loki decided to also choose to stay for a minute and, well, listen to everything else Izuku had to say. She knows most of the times Izuku wouldn't say anything that would, well, be without reason, or no purpose of stating. So hearing Izuku flat out state some information and that he wanted to help train Bell, even though Loki at first was like, why would you want to train that boy? But then she remembered that Izuku and Bell were actually kind of close, so she decided against it. For now, of course. Eventually, after some time, Loki let Aiz and Izuku walk away. They both decided to have a kind of nice day, seeing how all the work they had been doing for the past almost month now. They decided to have a chilling day. Of course, while walking around, Izuku just randomly ran into Bell, and Izuku instantaneously was like, random chance is kind of annoying, but he understood that Bell most likely either wanted to talk to him, or it really was just random chance that they had run into each other, which turned out to be the answer, that it was random chance. As Bell then ended up stating stuff that kind of surprised Izuku almost. Way more than most things would have, to say the least. When Bell stated that him and Artemis had officially gone into an actual serious relationship, Izuku felt quite proud for the young hero, feeling like he had actually done something to help the hero become an actual relationship man rather than just hanging out with a group of girls. Of course, Izuku had hell to pay when eventually Hestia showed up, knowing that Izuku had, well, semi-pushed it, but she had also known that Izuku did save her best friend's life, and even if her best friend did kind of steal her man, even though it wasn't really her man, she wouldn't complain about it. This caused Izuku once again to, well, laugh at the situation itself, finally enjoying a nice, peaceful day rather than what he usually had to do. Was kind of relaxing, of course. Izuku eventually ended up heading around and decided to enter the dungeon with Aiz for a bit. Of course, it was mostly just to go down to some of the deeper floors and marvel at some of the fiends. But nonetheless, he still decided to. Izuku ended up venturing pretty deep. Really deep in the dungeon, most would say. With Aiz right next to him, most monsters can't even fight him as they just went through everything. They eventually made it to the 50th floor, just the two of them. Which Aiz knew that most likely Loki would be quite confused on where Izuku and Aiz was at, mainly just because of the simplest thing, that they had kind of just dipped without informing Loki whatsoever where they were going. Of course, Aiz decided to say let's take it back up, which Izuku happily obliged. They both headed back up quite quickly actually, faster than most adventurers would, and came up to the top before Izuku dropped Aiz off at the mansion. They still weren't living in the same house, and Izuku definitely thought that neither of them would really mentally prepared for that next step in the relationship. So Izuku dropped Aiz off at her place. Aiz gave Izuku a parting laugh as Izuku did the same thing to Eyes. They shared a quick kiss before departing from each other, as Izuku headed back to his own personal place. And laid down, and closed his eyes as he drifted off to sleep. And that's where I'm going to leave it off, guys. If you like this, hit the like button. If you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. And until next time, goodbye.